What's going on, guys? Artificial Rest here, and welcome back to part 2 of the how to create a YouTube banner in 3D. And in this tutorial, or in this part 2, we are going to be covering how to edit your 3D render in Photoshop. So let's just take a quick look here. Now this is what we created in the part 1. This 3D text, which we will be pulling into Photoshop and start editing it right there. But first of all, I would highly recommend you guys going to my online GFX store and download the 8 color corrections and the YouTube banner template, because I will be using both of these products in this tutorial. And if you want to follow along, I highly recommend you should download these two products yourself. They are both free, and all you have to do is after you click share and download, you'll just have to tweet out that you have downloaded them from me, and you'll get them for free. So yeah, I would highly recommend doing that, because as I said, I will be using those in this tutorial. So let's just jump right into it. So I have, let's see, we can go ahead and start by opening the YouTube banner template. And here you can see we have the template itself. And what you want to do is go ahead and hide both of those layers. And just for this sake of this tutorial, I'm just gonna delete those. And I'm gonna save this out another place so I don't overwrite my original one, because that would pretty much screw me up. I'll just call this 3D tutorial part 2. There we go. And now it shouldn't be messed up my other Photoshop document, my original template file. So now we can go ahead and bring our, let's see if I can get onto my desktop and drag the, nope, that was not it. It was this one. We can go ahead and drag our 3D render into Photoshop. And what you want to do from the start is to right click on the layer and rasterize it, so you don't have the rasterize icon on it, which will make it a lot more easier to edit. I'm just gonna remove those two layers for now, and just go ahead and go into the image and look if there's anything we'll have to remove. And it doesn't look like it. Usually sometimes you would like to add some highlights or some more shadows if some of the areas are really dark on the text itself, but it doesn't seem like it is right here, so we don't have to do it. Move that onto the top, because that will make it easier when we are starting to edit it later on. But the next step, the next step you want to do is go into the filter tab and go into oil paint. And let's just zoom in a bit here so we'll see what we get. And I usually put the shine at 0 always, because this just looked like crap. Put it down to 0, the angular direction all the way up. And the cleanness needs to be, you know, somewhat high up for this. Scale I usually put to 10, and the stylization is the last one we'll edit. So this is pretty much, you know, personal preference. And I like to have it around 7, because then we get this kind of like nice smudged out look. And we'll use this. And as you can see, it's quite a difference already. Let me go ahead and minimize this. And before we go on any further with the actual text, I'm going to bring in a background image which we will be using, and I'm going to use an image from Battlefield Hardline. You'll also recognize this from the color correction document you can download from me. And what we'll do is we'll rasterize this as well, because it is a PNG when we bring it in, and we'll blur this image way out, so you won't even have any idea what it is. 106 should do it, because we just want the shadows from this image later on. So about there, I think that's fine. If we remove this, we can see that it's completely blurred, and this will also be nice for later on when we will when we'll save out the YouTube banner. So move the text above the background, of course. And what we'll do now is open our color correction. And if you have downloaded this, thank you very much. And all the color corrections I usually use on these kind of 3D renders is in this file. I think I'm going to be using a purple orange because this color correction is absolutely amazing. It's a mix of purple and orange, and it will look absolutely insane. Look at that. Oh, that looks great. I think that color correction is by far my most favorite one. So I'll censor this. And as you can see, our background image is, you know, it's a bit too strong. So what we'll do is we will use control and left click on this little thumbnail, and we're going to change the color to something darker on this, and then press Alt and back, and you'll see the color change. And now if we add the image back up and go down on the opacity, you can see it change somewhat. And this, let's take it down to 45. I think that would be good. And if I just change it back up now, that looks much better than having that, because the yellow spots on the original one was way too strong, and it almost took the focus away from the actual text. Alright, so let's go on. Another thing you can do is duplicate the original 3D layer by pressing Ctrl J. Move the copy in the back, and we're gonna size it up. We're gonna size it up to about, oh shit, okay, doesn't matter, we can just center it again, it's fine. Size it up to around there. And if you want more of this, you can duplicate it again, move that underneath again, and size this up some more. And this will kind of add a cool effect once we start blurring things out. And on the second copy, the middle one now, we will we'll start blurring it out by going to filter and then Gaussian blur, and we'll not blur it out too much, just enough that you know it is blurred. And to create some more, we'll put it at 5, and to create some more cool effects, we'll blur this about 3 times as much as we used on the second one, so 15, just to blur it out even more. And as you can see, that kind of creates a cool effect. And what I'll do is I'll blur this one more time, and I'll blur this one more time by pressing Ctrl F, and that looks a bit better. And what I'll also do is scale up the last one and turn down the opacity a bit. And as you can see now, we got a nice 3D text or a 3D effect. Now it's just put plainly on the background. And if I highlight these 2 layers again, we'll have something nice in the background to not completely still focus, but add to the actual effect. What I also like to do, I know a lot of designers don't really like this, but I like to just create a copy of that one, of the original one. I'm going to filter and blur and motion blur, and blur it a bit of the 0% angle, and I'll blur it just a bit, not too much. I'll blur it around 4, and as you can see on the preview here, it is a bit blurred. I kind of like that because that makes it a bit out of focus and not too extreme. Another thing you can do is if you press Control and click on the thumbnail, you get this. You have the entire text selected, and if you now go into modify and feather it, and I'll feather it around 10, I think. If I now press Control I to invert that selection and start pressing delete, it will feather out the edges, kind of make it more to like blend into the background. But another way you can do that is to actually just use the not that one, use the eraser tool by pressing E on your keyboard and just erase around the top and the sides and just around the bottoms if you want to, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to have it like that for now. Was that everything? Yeah, that was everything. Okay, so we are now going to be focusing a bit more on the background, I think, because you know it looks good, but I think it needs some more work. So what we can do is we can hide both of those, or actually we can keep them highlighted. And what we'll do is create a new layer above the second copy we did of the original 3D layer, and press B to get the brush tool out. We'll increase the brush size by right-clicking on the anywhere on the document, and we'll increase the size to about 1500 pixels. I think that would be good. And what we'll do is we'll press, or we'll click somewhere on the top, and we'll get some more lighting effects. And we'll do the same again by creating a new layer, but this time we'll press X to get the black foreground color, and we will press on the edges a couple of times, 2 times, and then we'll increase the brush size to around 2000, and we'll do it at the bottom, just something around there. Now if I remove these two, you can see we have done a bit more work with the shadows. Let's see, which one of these was it? It was this one. Okay, so there we go. There we go, there we have something nice. Alright, so for now I am going to start adding some different patterns and stuff, and that is also one more thing you can download from my store, is the GFXPack, which I will be using right now to add some different flares and different stocks and textures, etc. And this is also free, the same as the previous two I just told you about in the beginning of this video. So we'll get this up, and just as my Photoshop wants to read it. It's a pretty large file, so it will take a little while to load, actually. Let's see, we can go ahead and close this, and this is what I want. We can see if we can start to add some different particles. Not quite sure what we should add, actually. We can go first ahead and try to add a lens flare, because you know, if you want a not necessarily good, but if you want a kind of cool design, kind of like almost futuristic, this one, kind of futuristic, you almost always want to add a lens flare. Almost always, not all the time, but you know, almost. And let's just bring this to the top so we see what we're working with under the color correction that we added. And okay, there we go. That looks pretty nice, don't you think, with some particle effects? Let's just size it up and move it above here. Okay, this should do, right? We'll just remove the color, because that's gonna annoy me if those two only have the color. I think this looks pretty cool. You can either use screen as your blend mode or lighten. I like to use screen because it removes the black around the edges. If you can see there, the black is removed. If I use lighten, it's kind of darkened, but it doesn't remove all of the black in the lens flare. So you want to use screen for this one. You can move around with other. Oh, that's a pretty cool effect, actually. It's a damn cool effect, actually. Let's move it under, see how it looks. Pretty good. Add some more of it. That actually looks kind of cool. That is something you can do, but I'll just keep it at screen and bump the opacity back up to 25. There we go. That looks pretty cool. That was not where I want to go. I want to go back into the GFXPack and go into the cracked. See if we can find a cool cracked texture in this GFXPack. I think I'm going to use this one, actually. I'll use this one. There we go. Okay, so what I want to do now is size it down to just cover my text. And the reason for doing this is because I want to add some cracked texture effect to the actual okay, it wasn't I want to remove the color, not rasterize it. That's why I couldn't find it. The reason why I did that is because I want to add the cracked texture effect to the actual text. So what you do now to make this fit into the text, because if I would just go into like this would be like into overlay, it doesn't look very good, but that is because we need to remove everything around the text. So how you do that is to again hold down Control and then left click on the text, and I don't know if you can see this, but it is highlighted. The text is highlighted, and with the cracked layer selected, press Control Shift I to invert it and select everything around the selection and press delete, and now it will isolate only the text. Another way you can do that is to hold down Alt and press between the cracked layer and the original text layer. This will also lock it in case you want to move it around some, but I like to simply do this, the first method I showed you. And now we can go down into overlay. You can also like figure out any other cool blend modes that will fit with this, but for now I'll just use a simple one. I'll use overlay, and you know, this is way too strong, so we're going to move this down to around 25. Just add some small text effect to that. And what we'll want to do now is try to delete everything around the text. It doesn't matter, you don't have to be very accurate while doing this. Just go over with the eraser tool and just erase around the text, because you pretty much only want the text to have the cracked effect, unless you want everything to have the cracked effect, but I think that have a tendency to be a bit too much. I'll just go ahead, go over the parts where the text is not. I'm not being too accurate with this, because it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be too perfect around the edges, because you know, once you save out this, it's not gonna, you're not even gonna notice how it looks. Another cool thing we can add is actually what you could have done before I completely forgot it, is instead of the cracked effect or the cracked effect layer, you could have added some lava actually, because I think that would also look nice. And now we will let's see, where was I? We can go into, if I remember right, we can go down into particles, and I don't think snow particles would do good on this one actually. You can try and add this one actually, see how it looks, only on the background. We'll move that underneath all the text and just add it on the background. Oh, and my ruler layer, or my rulers disappeared. That's fine. Just press Ctrl R and they will come back. If we go into overlay on this and get the flares back up, you can see it adds some more different particles on the edges. And what I'll actually do is I'll move this one even further up, because this is a bit too strong. I'll move it around there. I think that looks good. Just press Ctrl 0 and you'll zoom in to make the image fit the screen. That's a really good shortcut. Press Ctrl 1 and it will zoom in to the center. Press Ctrl 0 again and we'll zoom back out, instead of having to scroll or press Ctrl plus or Ctrl minus. Just some small shortcuts right there. Just move the color on that. Actually, what we want to do with this, we can probably put it down to 50%. Just make it a bit more washed out. One more thing you can do is add a hue and saturation layer above everything, and turn down the saturation, which will make it a bit more washed out. So if we take off this, you can see much more color, a bit more washed out color setting actually, which is pretty nice. So I actually think that will be it, guys. I'll go ahead and save this out by pressing Control Shift Alt and S to save it out. And before I do that, I'll go ahead and change the background layer just a bit to there. And this is one thing I like to do for when I design YouTube banners for my clients. Excuse me, I like to highlight this and Control I and just delete all of that because I don't want that. And let's see what is taking up all the color. I think it might be that. That is how it looks without color. Kind of looks nice, kind of some different colors. You can also play around with different color corrections in my color correction pack. There's a lot of great ones there, my favorite ones actually. But what I want to do is, if I go ahead on this one and go into not overlay, that was way too heavy. I usually like to put the opacity down on this, so you kind of like, you can see it kind of like having a fading effect. If I move this up, this should look a bit better. There we go. That's kind of like just something I like to do at the end when I've finished the design, just to get it, you know, make it look a bit more professional. Because if I have it at 100%, it looks kind of like really dull. Now, you know, my clients can, you know, they can change it back, but I like to put it down just a bit, so you know, you can get an idea that it's not just the actual banner size in the middle that is designed, it's everything around it too. It just makes it look much more nice. So we can go ahead now and save it out for web. As I said previously, just Control Shift Alt and S. And here is the important part. You'll have to save it as a PNG 24 because that will give the banner the best compression available, and will give it much more color when you upload it to YouTube, because the YouTube will push down the size and make it look much worse than it looks right here. And also another thing to note is down here where it says the file size. This needs to be under 2 megabyte file size. I have actually tried it to upload a 1.8 and it wouldn't do it. It said it was above, but when I saved it again, it said under, or it was 1.8. So, you know, try and keep it under around 1.5. That should be enough. And then you can just press save, and we'll save it out. Let this just do its thing. And once it's done, it just close, and we can go back to our desktop. Just gonna move this into here. And so what we started with in part 1, after part 1 we had this pretty nice 3D effect with some particle explosions in the back, and at the end of this part we ended up with this. So that is a pretty big difference. That is how you can create a YouTube banner in 3D in both Cinema4D and Photoshop. So I'll just close all these windows, and yeah, I hope you have enjoyed this 2 tutorials. And if you watched part 2 but haven't watched part 1, I'll highly recommend watching part 1 as well to get an idea of how I created the 3D effect with where it said artificial. And don't forget to visit my store. You don't have to purchase anything or get anything, but the graphic packs are free. The ones I used in this video is free for that simple purpose, that it should be available to everybody, and not just the ones that want to pay for it. And yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and I'll talk to you guys later.